In the last video, we talked about how the endometrium embrace the embryo and look after and nurture the embryo. In this video, I'm going to talk about when the placenta is formed, the placenta is the afterbirth, how does it look after the baby? I remember in the past when I was a medical student many moons ago, a professor asked how does a mom gives what baby needs. And my colleague mentioned the mom's blood flow straight on to the baby and they share the same blood flow. It's not exactly true. Let's see. Indeed, the placenta is a guardian angel. Hiya, I'm Teoh, obstetrician, gynecologist, and fertility specialist in Perth. For the whole 9 months, the placenta looks after baby. Baby is enclosed in this in the womb, which is separated from the outside world. Baby can't get oxygen from outside world. Baby can't get rid of carbon dioxide, which is the gas we breathe out. Baby can't get rid of the toxins, waste, and baby can't get nutrient directly like what we do, we eat, but baby can't get it. So everything is from the placenta, the afterbirth, through this umbilical cord, blood flow to and from baby to this umbilical cord, to the placenta, which is the afterbirth. How does it work? In the placenta, there's lots of small little blood vessels, which we're going to look a little bit deeper into it. The baby, to and from, which is from the umbilical cord to the placenta. And then you got mom's blood flow from the womb into the placenta. There are new blood vessels forming, those little tortuous ones. They are called spiral arteries. It's been estimated that in the placenta there are about 120 plus minus new spiral arteries being formed. So baby's blood being flowed, there's no direct mixture of the blood, but in this area there's a exchanges of everything happens in this area. So baby's blood flow from here, as you can see, into the small little blood vessels, and we call them capillaries, and then after that it flows back. Mom's blood flow from the bigger blood vessels to the spiral arteries, as stated earlier on, flow into this area. So actually the baby's blood vessels group, they actually soak in the mom's blood there, where in this thin layer where there's exchanges of everything, like I mentioned earlier on, nutrients, gases, waste, toxins, minerals, and everything. And after that, mom's blood flow will go back from the little capillaries, the small blood vessels, back to the mom. Now, those small little blood vessels, the spiral arteries, they're meant to be low pressure. So when those blood vessels are formed, the blood vessels would dilate, and so that they're low in pressure, so mom's blood can flow in easily. And you can actually measure the pressure in early pregnancy by doing ultrasound scan. We call uterine artery Doppler, so we can measure those blood vessels. What happens is if there's a higher pressure being formed, like when they're forming those blood vessels, they're not quite relaxed, they're a bit tight. I was going to think of uptight, but they're a bit tight and it causes the pressure to be a bit high. Now that can affect the blood flow to the placenta, and it can affect baby's growth because you don't have good blood flow to babies, and also later on due to inflammatory response because body is trying to cope to keep pumping in this blood flow to the higher pressure level, which is unusual. that can cause preeclampsia and high blood pressure in the mother itself because the body is trying to cope and due to inflammatory response. Now, can we promote a placenta growth and function? Can we promote a healthier placenta? Nothing's 100%, but there are things we can do, and this is where personalized medicine comes in. The answer is yes, there's something we can try to do. Number one is aspirin. Aspirin is a very, well, it's cheap drugs. We know we can get them over the counter. And there are actually robust research, good research showing that by just taking aspirin, low dose aspirin from early pregnancy, one a day at night, and that can promote the placenta architecture, they form a bit better and function and help to prevent preeclampsia. Now, for patients with higher risk, there are different risk factors like higher age group, first baby, twins and such. Then you thought, look, let's give aspirin. Some of my colleagues would promote aspirin to everybody. It's not without side effect. Some people, in early pregnancy, they get reflux, they feel a bit sick. So aspirin may make things worse sometimes. If you get bad reflux, aspirin may potentially make it worse. So for me, I do a personalized approach. I check their risk, and also if they got babies in the past, just to see, look, was it a lower risk healthy baby, or did they have preeclampsia in the past, baby's growth being affected, or we call it restricted in medical terms. So those are the things you take into consideration, and does the mom has any reflux or any gastric discomfort or nausea, or the sickness in pregnancy, hyperemesis in pregnancy, you may not want to use aspirin. Now the other thing is diet. Actually, if you go for Mediterranean diet, like in my the diet I recommend in my book, then there are good report actually saying that we can potentially lower the chance of getting preeclampsia. So healthy lifestyle, good diet, and perhaps adding aspirin if needed can improve or can lower the chance of getting preeclampsia and affect placenta dysfunction or placenta insufficiency, basically placenta not functioning 100%, affecting baby's growth. Ask is, why does the body not rejecting the placenta and the baby? After all, this whole big lump of placenta, which is a foreign body in the mother's womb, and also a baby inside. This is what I've spent a few years in the lab looking into parts of the mechanism or the process. How does a placenta avoid the immune system from the mother? So we looking back at the placenta itself. As I mentioned, this is baby's blood vessels. We call them cotyledon in different parts, and they are soaked in mother's blood. Now, in mom's blood, there are immune cells. We all have immune cells protecting our body from foreign body or foreign things like bacteria or viruses or anything which is not from our own self. Why does the body not reject the placenta and baby? Now, if you look at this diagram, if you have a look at that, we call it is a border, essentially the junction between the mom's blood and the fetal cells, which is the placenta from the baby. This kind of highlighted yellow area all the way from there to there, and etc. They keep going on and on. So essentially, in those areas, there's like border patrol. There's constant communication at that junction in controlling the inflammatory response, in getting the right cells in to cross talk, to talk to each other, to say, hey, we are friends, we are not enemies and such. So that's constant biochemical. So it involves the protein in the body, involves the different immune cells. There are some cells which can recognize each other. So it is fascinating. It's a very, very big subject. You can spend years and years or your whole lifetime studying this subject in this area. But it is fascinating, by spending a few years in the lab collecting placentas, looking at them, give us an insight on how the delicate balance or orchestration of those cross-talking, those communication between the mom cells and the baby cells. Or some of my patients are actually biology scientists, and you can read the doctorate thesis that I've written from the University of Glasgow, collaborating with the University of Cambridge. The subject is a bit heavy, especially if you haven't worked in the biology lab in the past. Even for my doctor colleagues, they would need a lot of input from me to understand fully. This is the proof that my daughter was born in Glasgow. She was born when I was working in the lab. There's a bit of story behind it. I've written a little bit in my book. Yep, good proof. Brave heart painting on the face. It was done on the Saint. Well, I'm always going to say Saint Patrick. It's not Saint Andrew's Day in Scotland. And this is the part of the colorful diagram from my book. Right, folks, to summarize, placenta is the guardian angel of baby, and also there are steps we can take to promote the health and architecture of the placenta for a healthier mom and baby. All right, that's it for this time. Bye-bye.